For those of you just coming in, if you guys can scan that QR code to check in, students, and then parents, if you're here for your student, if you could just fill that information out. All right, we're gonna get started. It is 6:30 here, but just a few like housekeeping things. So I am Stephanie Emanuel, and I'm one of the counselors here. You probably saw Sarah Schmidt and Cassidy Hartman. They are two other counselors. And then Kim, does the AOA and ALC. She couldn't make it, but might be jumping on virtually. So a few things, if you haven't checked in yet, if you could do that, that kind of tracks who's attended this. This is being virtually live streamed, and then we are also recording it, so if people couldn't attend tonight, they can watch the recording later. In the bottom corner, you're gonna see on every slide a QR code. So if I'm talking, and you have a question that comes up, you can scan that and submit your question. It's anonymous, so if there's something that comes to mind on that slide, just go ahead and submit that question there. So there's a lot of opportunities for students at Austin Public Schools, and that's what I'm going to talk to everyone tonight about. But I'm really going to focus on the PSEO side. And if you have further questions about like AP or concurrent courses, feel free to connect with us afterwards and we can chat more about those. So here are opportunities for students to get college credit just by attending school here at Austin High. So one way is you'll see AP courses, and we have like 7 of those offered. And so students would take a test in May and see if they get the college credit. I'm gonna point out Riverland specific. If a student gets a 3 or higher on their AP test that they take, they can transfer that into Riverland for college credit. So if any of your students have done an AP class, they can transfer that in. Every college is different. So if you go to like the University of Minnesota, they would require a different score. And then there are concurrent classes, and this can get very confusing. So concurrent classes, here they are called RCC courses. Have you guys seen those labels before, the RCC? So those are concurrent. And concurrent is taught by a high school teacher. It's in our building, and they are certified to teach those high school classes, and then the students get the college credit. The other nice thing about that is if they do RCC, you as a parent, it's on the portal for you to see their grades and Infinite. All of that information is easily accessible to you, and you can talk with the teacher because they're not a Riverland faculty member or a college faculty. Then, this is what we're going to talk about tonight is the post-secondary enrollment option. So that's PSEO, where students have a choice to go to any college and take PSEO classes. So you could go to Riverland, is where many students tend to go. You could go to another college. Every college has their own criteria, and that's what I'll kind of talk about in the future slides here. But when you're going PSEO, there's a lot of steps and processes for students. Both for concurrent and PSEO, students have to apply to the college. With PSEO, they apply, we send transcripts, test scores, and students have to fill out paperwork. Parents, you have to sign off on it unless your child is 18, and then they work with the college. And at that point, it's on the student and the college. Parents, you're kind of removed from that process. The college really works with the student. And then for the concurrent, you apply, but then the students work with us at the high school. So they would work with Ms. Schmidt, myself, or Ms. Hartman. We help them apply to the college, which is Riverland. All of our courses run through Riverland. We send their transcripts and test scores, and it's right on their schedule who their concurrent class is with. So this is paperwork that students have to fill out in order to do PSEO classes at any college. This is called a Notice of Student Registry form. It can be found on the Minnesota Department of Education website, or every college has it posted on their website because they all have like a PSEO information section. And I'll show you that if your students are thinking about Riverland, I'll show you where that form can be found for Riverland specific. But this is the form. So there's 2 pages, and students only have to fill out the first section, and then the second section is done by the high school, and the last section is done by the college. And this can get confusing because every college is different. Some colleges want you to submit just for fall. Riverland specific, they let students enroll for the full year, so they need a fall and spring for your students to enroll for that full year. So PSEO, it's a free opportunity for students in grades 10th, 11th, and 12th to earn college credit for free. They go out to the college and they take classes. There's lots of different ways that students can take the classes. There's no tuition, no fees, and I'll put in a caveat there, unless your student doesn't return their books or they damage them. So there is no cost for the books. There might be costs for some materials, and I'm gonna use the CNA class that many students tend to take. Students do have to get a pair of scrubs for that class, and they keep them, so that is a cost that's not covered under the PSEO part, but most everything is. So here is what financially would be covered: the tuition, the textbooks, like I said, unless they're not returned. And then what's not covered would be meals, but students are still a high school student, so they could come here and eat. And then if students need like a laptop, they can use the high school one. Just know that sometimes the high school Chromebooks and stuff don't always jive with what the college wants. But know that the colleges do have, like, if your student's going to Riverland, they do have like computer labs and things that the students can access on campus. And then anything that just becomes a personal item, like I talked about the scrubs, become personal items and they get to keep that, so. Famous question that students always wonder, am I eligible for PSEO? So the state sets standards, MDE does. So are you a junior? Are you a senior? Yes, okay. Then you get to take classes. And then each college sets their own standards. So if you go to Riverland, they have their own. If you do RCTC, they have a different set. The U of M has a different set. But for 10th graders specifically, if you're going into 10th grade next year and thinking about PSEO, you do have to score an 850 on that 8th grade MCA. And if you didn't take it, then you have to take another test. For Riverland specific, it's the AccuPlacer that you can take for that. But other colleges might have a different test to take. And then as a 10th grader, you can take one CTE course. Every college has a list of what that looks like. And if they get a C or better, then second semester, they can take anything. For juniors and seniors, they can take anything. And again, each college is different on their standards, so you'd wanna look at, I know Riverland's, and we're gonna get to that in a minute, but some colleges look at GPA, class rank, test scores. So when your students are taking the MCAs, ACTs, that's just one measure of them, and it can, A, help them get into the PSEO program, or it helps with course placement too, so your students don't have to continuously test. So here's Riverland's specific qualifications. So if your student's thinking of going to Riverland and taking a class at Riverland, they have the 10th grade, so MCA, like I talked about. If they didn't take MCA, then they could take AccuPlacer. And if your child did take, and Austin High is very unique for this, because we have like a contract and agreement with Riverland. But if your child didn't meet the 850 on MCA, don't rule it out. They could take AccuPlacer and still take a look at if they meet course placement. And then for juniors and seniors, I always just start with the very top one. Do you have a GPA of a 2.5 or better? And if you do, great, you qualify. And there's nothing more that you need to do, okay? You don't have to take an AccuPlacer, you don't have to, none of that. If you do have a 2.5 GPA and you have no test scores on file, I will say that I would recommend taking the AccuPlacer for course placement, because at a 2.5 GPA, you're not gonna be able to take like Comp 1, because the guideline is a 2.6 GPA. And then we will send over test scores, like I said, depending upon where the GPA is. If you don't meet the GPA, there's the other criteria. There's ACT, SAT, AccuPlacer. So always just check with your counselor and see what you need to do. If you guys go to riverland.edu/PSEO, that gives you all of their information on that website. So super important, when students are signing up to be a PSEO student, you are a college student. Yes, you're still a high school student at your high school, but the college is gonna expect you to be a college student. So expectations would be that you're attending your classes. If you're not, there's a lot that can happen at the college. A professor can kick you out of their class if you haven't attended in a certain amount of time. So lots of things can happen. So attendance is expected. And then just being responsible. So let's say you miss an assignment. like emailing the teacher, hey, I was sick, I'm sorry, you know, whatever happened. Like, you have to take that ownership as a student. So your parents can help guide you, but they can't email your instructors out there. Just taking independence and motivation. So the rigor is higher out there, the expectations that the faculty have, and it will vary from faculty to faculty, just like it does here. But just know they expect your homework in on time, that you're attending, participating. So if you have that drive and motivation to do well, that's a good thing. Work completion. I know high schools back in the day, you guys were like, oh, just tests count, but now we're factoring in homework. They factor in everything. So attendance, tests, quizzes, every little thing they factor into your grade. Super important, as a student, you will be communicating not only with the high school, but now you're adding another person in, and that's an advisor. And so those advisors at the college communicate with you through different means, and it's not your high school like email that they're communicating to. So you're taking on more responsibility. And then just prioritizing your graduation requirements. So it's not like, hey, I'm gonna go out and take whatever I want and forget about taking English and math. No, you still need English and math to graduate. There's classes at the college that will meet those requirements though. And then just seeking information on how credits will transfer. So that's always a question that people have is like, how will my credits transfer? And I have some solutions to that towards the end here that I'll talk about, but that would be super important. Like, where do you think you want to go after high school? And then just independently learning how to navigate systems and platforms. So here, we use Schoology, we use Microsoft, but when you go to a college, it's a whole nother platform that you add in. So just knowing how to ask for help or set up appointments to navigate those systems. And then last, there are academic standards that students have to maintain when they go to college. So when you go out to Riverland, or if you're at another college, they do expect you to have a 2.0 GPA, college GPA, and a 67% completion rate. So I use this for an example. You have 2 classes at Riverland, and you decide, my math is too hard, I want to get out, so I want to withdraw from it. So now you have 1. And you do finish that class, and you get a B in that class. Well, your completion rate was just impacted because you withdrew from the 1 class. So you went from 100%, and when you dropped that class, you went to, does anybody know the percentage? Somebody said it? 50%. So now it places you not in a very good situation. You get put on like academic warning. That means like, hey, don't do this again. Otherwise you get suspended. And that impacts students a lot because they don't realize that, oh, I'm suspended from financial aid. So Austin Assurance Scholarship, I can't get that. So just know that when you're taking college classes, it's a very serious thing. So then I use this. Lots of you are involved in activities and sports. Maybe you're in music. You have a lot going on. Maybe you have a job. So thinking about, do you have the time to commit? So I use the example of 1 credit is 1 hour of class. So you're gonna go to class for 1 hour, but then you're gonna do another 2 hours outside of class, just for that 1 credit. So if a student takes a full load of 12 credits, they would have the 12 hours of in class, but then 24 hours outside of class for schoolwork. Now, nobody sets up your schedule and says, hey, you need to be doing your schoolwork on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you set up your schedule. So just know that. That's just one thing to take into consideration when you're taking those classes. Like, how much time do I have and how much homework am I going to have with this class? Also just considering, is this the right thing for you? So are you the type who is proactive, where you're like, oh yeah, I got this, you know, or you're gonna ask questions, seek out help. Also, just being an independent learner, like, okay, I don't understand this, but here are my resources, what can I do? And managing your time, that's a really, really big one. That tends to get in the way. Attendance, that's super important, that you're attending your classes out there, whether it's online or going in person. And then just seeking out help when you need it, we talked about that. Kind of looking at your previous academic pathway. So if you haven't done a PSEO class or a college class, like how much do you want to take on right now? Maybe it's just like one class, you want to see how it goes. And then just looking at the rigor, so there are classes out there that might be harder depending upon, you know, the course load. So I always use, like, there's chemistry classes out there, and I'm like, they're tough. And students come back and they're like, yeah, that was tough, right? But then there's other classes like, hey, you can, you know, and lots of good conversation about comp can be a good one out there. Can be tough depending upon how many papers you've written in the past. And then just taking responsibility for your academic experience. So are you willing to take that on? Because like I said, once you head out to the college, your parents don't get information. We kind of work through some of that though. Riverland's very good about contacting us when they get information, and then I, as a counselor, always loop you in. So you know that if I'm looping you in, parents, that there's something going on. I talked about college platforms, so every college is different. You guys have different platforms here, and then when you jump to the college world, you are going to be adding a platform where you're going to be doing your coursework. Riverland specific, or a lot of the Mid-State colleges, they use Brightspace. And that is a whole different beast in itself. But new PSEO students navigate through that by doing a new PSEO orientation in Brightspace. And then there's registration services. Riverland and Mid-State colleges, they use the e-service platform. And this is where students would register. They'll see their transcript, like their unofficial transcript. They'll see degree audits. There's so much in every one of those platforms. And I'll be honest, sometimes students have to navigate those on their own unless, again, you're asking for help and seeking that help out. And then one more thing is, this always gets confusing because students are like, well, I didn't get an email. They emailed you at your Riverland email. You're adding another email to your life. And that's their way of communication. They will not, because of FERPA and stuff like that, they can't send stuff to your personal email once you're activated into the system. So your original communication, like, hey, congrats, you've been accepted, here's your next steps, that will go to your personal email, but after that, everything goes to your Riverland one or your college one. So just a few suggestions and tips and tricks if you are going to take classes on a campus, that you're seeking out the supports that you need. Every campus is different, and just know that you are a student here, so you still have access to teachers, counselors, anybody that you would need help and support from here at the high school. And then you can access stuff out at the campus. You just can't become a student athlete out there, okay? Or get any scholarships. But everything else, like they have clubs, you can do that. They have like accessibility services that you can access if you're struggling with things. They have tutoring centers or computer labs. They have a library. You are a student at both sites, and so you can access resources on both campuses. These are just examples of different ways that students can learn. And this is super important when students are registering for their classes out at the campus. Students are like, I don't know, but I'm gonna just kind of go through some. So face-to-face would be like, hey, you're meeting Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then you'd have outside of work time a little bit on that Tuesday, Thursday, doing some schoolwork. Completely online is the asynchronous. There's not a teacher teaching. They're logging into Brightspace, and you're doing your schoolwork right in there. Nobody's teaching. You're navigating that platform and system. And then blended hybrid would be like you're meeting maybe on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then you're doing some of that coursework through Brightspace Online. And they added a new one in the Min-State, lots of the Min-State colleges are going this way, where students can do high flex, and it's kind of nice. So they have bimodal and trimodal. And so bimodal allowed students to be able to do classes either in person or jump on a Zoom meet. So let's say you sign up for a class and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go in person, and then all of a sudden you get sick. Well, you can jump on the Zoom meet that day. You don't have to miss the direct instruction. And you don't have to choose your way. It's like, choose your way for the day. And then trimodal, students can go in person, they can do it completely online, or they can do Zoom. So some students really like that trimodal because they're like, well, if I need the help, I know I can go to class then and get that direct instruction. And I just like to point this out. Every college has different pathways, but like I said, most students do choose Riverland because it's right here. But when students are looking at stuff, I always ask students like, why do you want to do PSEO? And sometimes it's, I just want to experience a class. Some students are like, what? I can get a degree while I'm in high school? Yes, you can. Or you can maybe finish some prerequisites to get into a certain program. So like there's radiography that you have to do certain classes before you can get into that program. So these are just good platforms for students to use to do some of that exploration and readiness. Famous question, will my credits transfer? So I will highly recommend that you set up a transferology account. This is huge when you're going, taking just a few classes, college credits, and then how will they transfer into my future college? Most of them are on there. I always use St. Thomas. I don't know, I call them out on it. But they're a private school and they have their own transfer system. So if you were to go to St. Thomas and you were wondering how credits would transfer, you would just Google credit transfers to St. Thomas, and they have their own online link. But most schools are on that transferology. The other thing I always encourage students to do is if you know your future college, reach out to their admissions hey, if I take a few courses through this college, how will they transfer into your college? You can always send them your unofficial transcript once you get going and have them look at that. The other thing is just knowing sometimes there's a difference for students if they've taken just a couple of classes or if they've actually earned a degree and how that will transfer. So just always checking with people, admissions at colleges, and then that transferology website is really good too. So if students are going to do PSEO, they're going to go out to Riverland, they still have to meet graduation requirements. And like I had said, colleges do have course equivalents. Your student will get a sheet on, okay, here are the classes that I can take to meet my English requirement. Here are the classes I could take to meet my science requirement. So just know that. And then electives, they're electives. So when students are like, hey, I want to take, I'm trying to think of I want to take sociology, it's going to be an elective credit. So just know that too, though we're just fine-tuning our credit sheet here. So there's a lot to consider when students want to do PSEO, where they're going to a college and taking the classes with college faculty. So there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons, and as a family, you guys can talk these out and see. But one is students get college credit for free. Another benefit is it can be flexible. And so can students handle that, right? Another one is maybe they need to challenge themselves in different areas, and this would be one way to do that. And then sometimes students are like, oh, I get to choose, do I want to learn this way or do I want to attend class this way? And that can be a benefit for students. And then just maybe they want to meet new friends, right? But then that can go on the con side because they are sitting in classes with adults, maybe my age, maybe older. So sometimes that can be not so good. Just experiencing college in itself with supports in place. So they still have their high school that can support them and hey, I have a question on my math assignment, maybe they're really connected with their math teacher and can get some help. And then just the self-advocacy, they're having to do this. And so you as a parent, you're guiding them through that right now, so that can be a benefit. And then the other benefit is there's a variety of courses that students can explore. They have a lot of options. Again, there's cons to it too. So remember, the student is going to be treated like a college student. The colleges have to follow FERPA law. So I'm sorry, you don't get phone calls, you don't know their grades. But hint to parents, you can always have them log into their Brightspace and say, hey, show me what's happening. And I encourage you to do that. So just know that sometimes that's what I do too with students. I'm like, hey, let's pop up your Brightspace, let's see what's happening. And then instructors, if you call, they're not gonna give you the information. Yes, you can sign a release of information, but again, they're not calling you and saying, here's how your student's doing. There's no conferences. We get the transcripts here from the college, and then that gets put on their high school transcript, and sometimes it's a shock for everybody, except for the student, because the college doesn't always find out what's the advisors out there. Again, because the instructors are protected by that FERPA. One thing too is students do have to find transportation back and forth. If students are gonna be part-time, we can't always build that nice schedule of, okay, all of your classes are in the morning and then go up to the college. It just depends on what the students are keeping here and taking here. We do our best to work with the PSEO students on making an ideal schedule, but sometimes you do have to make choices. And here's what I tell students is, this is your decision. You know yourself, and you know what you can manage and handle. So it's a personal decision. Thinking about, why do you want to do this? Do you want to try and earn a degree or get stuff done before you get into a certain program? And then thinking about, do I want to be full-time or part-time? So full-time would be you need to take 12 credits out there, okay? Part-time is, okay, I'm going to take maybe 9 and keep a couple classes here. So it's all about the credit amount, not how many spaces and slots we fill up. And then thinking about, how is PSEO really going to help me work toward my career and just college goals? And am I ready for this? That's really a big question. Can I do this? Can I take it on? So if you're like, yes, I want to do this, and maybe it's one class, maybe it's full-time. I always tell students you're working with two different entities. You're working with the high school, and then you gotta work with the college. So here are our steps, and all of you should have gotten a sheet when you came in the door. This is Austin High steps. So it's generic because you might not choose Riverland, but these are our steps that we need you to follow and do. So first step, and I had a lot of students today, do I have to come to that meeting? And I'm like, yes, if you want to do PSEO, and you haven't done it before, yes. So those of you who have attended and stuff, boom, that's checked off. So now you can do step 2, which is apply to the college. And if you're thinking of Riverland and you've already applied there, move on to the next step, which is the paperwork. And so I'm gonna show you how to access that paperwork. Again, this is on you to get it into your counselors so that we can then get it to the college that you're wanting to go to. If you need a new one of these, this is also posted online on the high school website. Otherwise, we'll have them in the counseling office too. Super, super important. I'm gonna point out a date. We need you to do everything, all of the paperwork stuff, before May 30th, okay? Because over summer, counselors are not in office, okay? So in June, July, we come back like when it's past the deadline. So you need to have this all done, like your paperwork. You don't have to be registered for your classes by then, but we need you to have all of the paperwork in before May 30th. That is super important because if it's after that, there's like very slim pickings on who's going to do that paperwork. So know that. Spread that word to your friends like, hey, get going. I don't know if I have any returning students in here watching online, but if you've already taken a college class at Riverland, then you have different steps to follow because you're a returning student. So there are students, they just have a different process and step, but same thing. You have to get your paperwork into the counseling department before that May 30th. And please not May 30th at 3:30, because chances of it getting over, yeah. So just time management. So, and this will be posted, this presentation will be posted for you guys too, and it will be sent out, but I'm gonna jump over to the Riverland website to show you guys, and then if there's a different college that you have in mind, I can work on that with you, or your counselor can. But I'm gonna jump over, and don't mind me, I'm backwards here, trying to find my arrow. Can I just like duplicate it? I'm just gonna drag this one over to show you guys. So if you come on here, they have over here on the side, new, returning. Otherwise, if you scroll all the way down. So most of you are new PSEO students. So remember how I talked about you're following Austin High School steps? And then these are the college steps. And so they lay it right out for you. If you've applied, please don't apply again. And then complete the NOSR form. They want 2 copies, one for fall, one for spring, because you can register for the full year. And then 1 planning guide, just one of them. And then there are directions like which sections students need to complete, and then which section counselors need to complete. And then once you get all of that into the counseling department, we will send that over to the college with your test scores and transcript. And then after that, you would need to follow these steps down here. So you'll get an acceptance email. You'll get one from the college like, hey, you've been accepted into Riverland. But then you'll get another one once your paperwork is processed that says, hey, you have been accepted to the PSEO program. Here are your next steps. You need to complete an online orientation. And yes, you need to complete that before you can register with an advisor. If you have questions, you can contact Riverland. You can also stop by my office. I know how to get you started. And then once you complete that orientation, you get an email to your Riverland email, and then you get to meet with an advisor to register. So there's a lot of steps through this, and it takes a while. So parents, if your child is going to do this, you know, just checking in with them, like, have you gotten that email? Because they get it and then they stop sometimes, and they need just a little bit of guidance to say, oh, here, let's click on this and do this. So just checking in with them. And then, let me see if I can get out of here. Okay. The other site, and I won't jump to it, but Minnesota Department of Ed has a lot of information about PSEO, lots of good information on it, so if you have any questions, jump onto that site. Okay, once you get all your paperwork in, these are the people that you would go to and see. So we're all located straight back in the counseling office. New students, this is why you gotta come to this meeting so you can get the information, and then you can schedule a meeting with us. You can drop off your paperwork, you can email it to us. You've already attended this, but if you had further questions or your parents did, then you can set up that meeting. Otherwise, it's really getting us your paperwork so we can send it over to the college. And then I'm just gonna point out, so most students go to Riverland, so this is Keely Branstead. She is the PSEO advisor, and she would be the person that after your paperwork gets processed and gone through and you've done your orientation, then you schedule a meeting with Keely. And I will tell you that Keely is very, very busy because it's not just Austin High students attending Riverland. Keep in mind, lots of students throughout the state go there. So the sooner you can get your stuff done, the better. And then she does also use like a booking link, all of that, and that's where students would get an email about booking with her. Okay, questions here, and those of you here in attendance, if you have a question and just want to raise your hand instead of putting it in here, otherwise I'm going to pop up the questions. And does anybody have a question right now that's here? Otherwise I'll pop them up. One question is, what is the AccuPlacer test? So AccuPlacer test, it tests reading, so students can just do the reading section, or they can do a math. And so what it is it's testing their knowledge, and then they get a score. You don't fail it, you get a score, and that places you into college courses. And so there's certain scores that you need to have to place into college courses. So, and like I said, MCAs can do that too if students have done those. But an AccuPlacer we do offer here. Ms. Carlson offers it at least once a month in the Career Center. so students can take that right here on site. Is there a list of courses that count towards both college and core? Yes, we are working on finalizing that because there might be a few changes coming that we're just kind of finalizing that with admin and everything. But yes, we will have a course equivalent sheet for students. And then somebody said, is my first step to apply to Riverland? Yes, if you have not applied, and that's where you want to do PSEO, yes, your first step is to apply to Riverland. When you're applying, you'll get a star ID, and you'll create a password. Those are super, super important. You need to keep them, write them down, and then you'll have another ID. That one just know how to find, but write it down. You don't need to memorize that one, but your star ID you need to memorize. So what if I do good on the reading test but not the math one? You can take reading or math. We like you to do both, but if you're not thinking of taking a math class out at the college right now, you don't need to do the math AccuPlacer. It's really important for that reading one, but remember, depending upon your GPA, what that's like, or if you have other test scores on file, would determine if you need to do AccuPlacer. Does the Austin Assurance Scholarship apply to PSEO? No. So those are two separate things. So Austin Assurance would be after you graduate. Then you can, students might just take a few courses here and there, and then after they graduate, they would go out to the college and then finish up their degree in programming that they want and use Austin Assurance for that. PSEO is a state-funded program. And then when accepted, what is next? So when you're accepted, you need to be checking your email. Whatever email you use to apply to the college with, and please do not use your school one, because when you become a senior, you don't have access to that, and that becomes really messy. So use a personal one. If you have a personal email, use that. Some students don't have a personal one, so then use your school one for the meantime. But yeah, so checking that email, because you'll get lots of communication and you don't want to miss anything. Looks like that was it for questions. But if more come in, I'll reach out and get those out to you guys. My last thing, is just if you could do one more thing for me, and parents, please do this too, just feedback. And so this is a time for you to give feedback, and then also, like, if you have further questions, you can put that in there too. Keely did bring some materials, so students, if you're thinking of going to Riverland, she brought these nice little bookmarks. They're super helpful. It's a checklist on the college side, what you need to do. So some of the things match up with the high school side, and then some of it's strictly related to the college, like you gotta get your bright space orientation done. That's just part of their process. So feel free to come up and grab one of these. If you're a returning student, she brought some of those too, and she also brought her business card, which is super helpful for us. And then if you have questions for her, you can feel free to chat with her after this, those of you in person. Otherwise, this will all be linked. But thank you guys for attending. I appreciate it. And thanks for bearing with me in the cold too. So let us know if you have questions. Sarah is in the back, Cassidy's in the back, and I'll stay up here. So just let us know, but you guys are free to go.